Welcome to Crushgasm, the podcast that's been dedicated to bringing you the highs and lows of crushes, but we're shaking things up for the next couple of months to crush on a whole decade. Yep, we're talking all things 90s by breaking it down year by year with some familiar faces. Well, voices like today's guest, Steve Madole, my pop-punk pal and one half of the music-centric Notes McGotes Podcast, who is here to talk about the year that made every 90s kid wish they got hit by a car and handed a blank check, 1994. Steve, how are you?
I'm good. How are you, Kendra?
I'm fantastic. This is a good year. A good year for, I would say, movies. Kids' movies in particular. But before we start,
yes,
where can we find you and Brandon talking about all things music and all that jazz on the Notes McGotes Podcast?
You can find us on every major podcasting platform. We are on iHeart, Spotify, Pandora, I don't know, everywhere. Primarily social media-wise, you can find us on Facebook and Instagram, the Notes McGotes Podcast. Look for the record, a goat chomping on a record. His name is Nate. He is our mascot. And then we're also on TikTok at the Notes McGotes Pod. We don't have a huge following there yet, but we're working on it. Generally, you can find us twice a week, usually on Tuesdays and Fridays, where we will talk for about 45 minutes to an hour about an album. We'll give you kind of our favorite tracks, our least favorite tracks, our deep cut tracks from the album. We bring a guest on once a week and play some games. Generally just have some fun. What you're hearing today is a snippet of me, and I'm nicer to Kendra than I am to Brandon because I'm not nice to Brandon usually, but it's me. It's just two best friends just talking about music and giving each other a whole lot of crap.
Well, it's a fun show. I've done it, and I'm coming back for one of my favorite albums. I'm so excited.
I'm excited to have you back on, too.
This album, it was not the 90s, but it is one of the pivotal moments of, I think, a millennial's adolescence. I'm so excited. But let's kick off this 90s thing with, what were you doing in 94? Had you met your BFF, Brandon, yet?
No, I didn't meet Brandon until like 2015, 2016, so it was like recent. For Brandon and I, but in 94, I would have been 10, turning 10 that year, so it would have been like elementary school. Not too bad there. I don't know. My mom, my brother and sister and I were just kind of hanging out, doing our thing. I don't remember a whole lot of what I was doing. I remember the pop culture moments and like what I went through, and I did a little bit of research on what happened in 94. And yeah, I'm pretty stoked to talk about it. But yeah, just kind of living that life, getting in, starting to dip my toe into like the pop punk music too, because like Green Day kind of came out in 94, and things were slowly building into that music scene that I really grew to love towards the late 90s. So.
Yeah, it's hard to remember what you were doing as like a kid and in your life unless you had maybe like a major like life moment or a move or something. I just remember being in Miss Sparks' class. I think I was in first or second grade. It was a good time. She was the first person to teach me about Hanukkah, and we made latkes in first grade, and I was really excited because we had a combo class, and I had her again the next year for second grade, and that biatch, we did not make them then the following year, and I was very disappointed.
Oh man.
I know. So before we get into the movies and the music and the TV, we're going to talk about what you think is one of the best moments, pop culture wise, that is, of 1994, and that is Disney's masterpiece, The Lion King. For you, why? Why The Lion King? You and so many others.
So we talked and I battled because there was a lot of stuff that happened in 94. I sent you a list of like 10 different things, at least like heavy hitters. And the two big movies are two huge movies from my childhood and even adulthood now. And they're wide-ranging different ends of the spectrum. You have The Lion King on one side, you have Forrest Gump on the other side. They both came out in 94. But Lion King just... It might have been like the Jonathan Taylor Thomas angle, or like just the difference. The voice cast was so wide ranging. You knew a lot of the voices that were in the movie. It's one of the first Disney movies where they used, mainstream famous actors that we all kind of knew, as they've been doing now forever. But I think Lion King was one of the first ones when you could immediately pick up, yup, that's Jonathan Taylor Thomas. Like, holy crap, look at that. Everybody watched Tool Time and hung out with Tim Allen on Fridays and whatnot. But the animation was starting to kind of develop and getting better. The music was fantastic. The Elton John music's on there. It was great. It was something that was just took us by storm. And I remember my brother and sister and I were kind of in a summer kids program. My mom was a single mom, so she worked a lot. And they had these programs that you could go get lunch and play for a couple hours. You were chaperoned. It was the 90s, so you were kind of not really heavily chaperoned like you would be now. You could just still go out and do whatever you wanted. But this way you had somebody watching you. So your parents were halfway decent. And I remember their biggest push that year was if you came so many days in a row, at the end of the week you could go see The Lion King. And they did it for a whole month. Every Friday they took a group of kids to go see The Lion King. And I want to say me and my brother went 3 out of the 4 weeks we went and saw the movie with them because we didn't have anything else to do. So we're we're gonna go to the movies for free. Let's go. We got to go see The Lion King, and everybody else did. Went to the movies and saw it too. But there's so much. The music is fantastic. The comedy aspect of it, where I think it was one of the first Disney flicks to be overtly funny, but also have some of that adult humor as mixed in as well, blatant adult humor. Disney wasn't doing that up until then. Little Mermaid a little bit here and there, but Lion King really opened it up. Nathan Lane kind of opened that up for everybody, I guess. That's kind of what happened. So
it was kind of the first time in a long time they had done a lot of, for the Disney Renaissance, they had done a lot of princess movies, and this one felt like the first one that was appealing to everybody. It wasn't so princess centric. There was a love story in it with the lions, but it was kind of this just general adventurous kind of, they had the love, they had friendship, they had family. It wasn't just,
and they had parents dying because they have to. It's Disney.
Trauma.
Yeah, right. It's animation cartoons brought to you by a set of trauma.
I mean, the best kind.
Right.
Land Before Time.
Oh my gosh. Oh, Littlefoot.
His poor mom and his little leaf that he tried to keep around. But in The Lion King, you mentioned the music. It is definitely, I think, up there. If you ask me my favorite Disney song, it's really hard for me to choose because Just Can't Wait to Be King is so good. Oh my, I feel like I have the delusional confidence that I could slay that in karaoke. Couldn't, but I have that confidence.
Yeah, and I like the Timon song where he says about Pumbaa being a tasty treat. I'm just, I think me and Brandon could do that one as a duet and be fine. So
at the summer program, why were they taking you every week to see the one movie? Why didn't they switch it up? Was there nothing else?
I think because there was so many kids that came, and not everybody came every time. So we were one of the only ones that just went every time because we just didn't. But at the time, it didn't matter how many. I think Lion King was one of those first movies for kids that you just wanted to go back and re-see it, watch it again and watch it again. It's like kids now that want to watch, Bluey, which is not a bad show. Watching it, you just can watch all day long. I think it was a kids thing, and I don't think the grown-ups really cared. And they weren't really grown-ups. They were mostly high schoolers, teenagers. They just felt like they were grown-ups to us because they were 17 and we were 10. So they were old.
Oh, for sure. Teenagers always look so much older until you get there.
Until you're in your mid-30s and you're no, you're still a kid. Leave me alone.
Oh my God, now I hate walking by teenagers. I always feel like they're gonna make fun of me or something. I'm especially when I lived in California, I hated going to the mall. If it on a weekend, I was oh no, the kids were there. I'm all nervous.
Yep. I actually enjoy that life now as a dad because I can just do my thing and be more obnoxiously terrible. And my kids are just you're the worst ever. I'm I know, but this is so much fun.
I could see that. I could see the joys of being a parent, especially to a teenager and embarrassing them. That would be really fun.
Yeah, until they start to fight back and you're just okay, I'll stop.
No, I would be even more embarrassing. So we have a running bit where we talk about people's sexiest man alive and the most beautiful person of the year. Do you have any guesses of who was the sexiest man and the most beautiful? I'll give you a hint. The most beautiful is a woman.
Was it Cindy Crawford?
No, she was 93, I believe.
Oh, okay.
And sexiest man, guess?
Tom Cruise.
No, but he's a good guess. It was actually Keanu Reeves because
Keanu.
Speed, so they were promoting that. And Meg
Speed,
Ryan, she was coming off the heels of Sleepless in Seattle.
Meg Ryan, huh? Okay.
Yeah, which is...
I could see Keanu. Meg Ryan was kind of a weird one. Like she was pretty, but
For early 90s, I feel like Meg Ryan was it. Like, she feels very that time. It's kind of like how I feel Adam Sandler, Jim Carrey's comedy is very 90s that time, and that's kind of...
Yeah, it's kind of how I feel like with Drew Barrymore towards the end of the 90s.
Like, it's just that it person for that era.
For sure.
And it's weird, the year she was the most beautiful person, her son, Jack Quaid, who we all know from The Boys, was 2 years old. So that makes me feel very ancient.
Ah, man, yes. Oh, wow. Way to go, Jack.
Grew up to be a wonderful, wonderful person. So I figured we were going to start with music since that's what you cover on a regular basis on Notes McGotes Podcast. So here we go. So in 1993, I talked with my buddy Dre about how Billboard Hot 100 was very blackety black. We talked about how it was apparent hip hop and R&B were the mainstays that year on the radio, on the charts, everywhere. But this year, 1994, very ace.
Grunge.
No, Ace of Base was...
Ace of Base, huh?
3 out of the top 10 songs that year were by Ace of Base.
Really?
I mean, was that something you were listening to then?
I mean, everybody listened to The Sign.
Yeah.
For sure. I mean, you still listen to The Sign now. It still plays on any of the, like, oldie... It's terrible. It's oldies. Holy crap. The oldie stations, like the 90s, 80s, 90s, and 2000s, and you feel like you're ancient when you listen to this stuff. But, I mean, yes, I still listen to some Ace of Base from now and then. I don't think I ever listened to a full Ace of Base album.
Yeah, I mean, I only know the heavy hitters that were this year.
Yeah, the 90s were such a weird time with music, so it's like, and you're not wrong, the early 90s were very R&B. I mean, like 92, 93 were very R&B heavy, R&B rap heavy.
Yeah, but then somehow we got this, like, I would say maybe a Swedish pop invasion, and it always makes me wonder, like, what's in the water in Sweden, because we owe so much to that country in regards to pop music, because, like, it's not just Ace of Base, it's like Max Martin. Max Martin, he is the producer behind, like, so many boy bands, hits, Backstreet Boys and Sync, Britney, and he's still working. He's like, The Weeknd, Taylor Swift, Ariana Grande. So I really want to go to Sweden and know what's going on over there.
Well, you got ABBA too, which kind of started back in the 70s, and then they're still going now too. They've just put out a new album. I think they're even nominated for Grammys this year.
So ABBA is all still alive and well, all 4?
I believe so. They just put out a new album. I'm 100% certain they were nominated for a Grammy for, like, best album. I'm pretty sure.
I bet Max Martin is part of it too.
More than likely. I can't say any of their names. I just looked it up. Benny Anderson is the easiest one. Everybody else, nope, not happening. It's
but
like,
it wasn't just Ace of Base though. We still had some R&B. 2 of the most signature romantic R&B songs ever. All for Ones, I Swear, and Boyz II Men, I'll Make Love to You. Which one do you think personally is more romantic?
Boyz II Men. Boyz II Men, just, I don't know. Their whole vibe was like, you get middle schoolers singing about sex constantly, and you're like, yeah, you know, this, like, awkward time, and you're just like, these songs are awesome. And then you kind of realize as you get further on in middle school what those songs are actually about, like, and now you're like, whoa, these songs are awesome. But no, I think Boyz II Men, and I kind of picked them over All for One because of that. Just they were around longer too. I mean, they did more, and they're actually still doing stuff now too.
And their videos were very, I'll say, iconic for the time. That I was watching some the other day, and it was just making me laugh that they were standing in pouring rain in matching striped shirts and shorts.
Yes. Yes. That was a choice for sure. Yeah, you're not proving anything there, guys. No.
I just was like, Why so matchy, boys?
And they influenced like Backstreet Boys' style. Like they influenced like the style between Backstreet Boys. Like in some of that like boy band-esque style where you're like matching and doing the crazy stuff.
But I feel
I
like
was just going
the
crazy.
boy bands definitely took it to a step further. That's why I don't consider Boyz II Men a boy band, because they didn't have like distinct personalities. Where Backstreet Boys are like, obviously AJ's a rebel. He has a hat.
They didn't have they were more just an R&B group. They weren't really a boy band. Like but they kind of you can feel their influence in that grouping.
Yeah, well, in 2021, I went to this very strange thing that, well, I believe it was Wanye from Boyz II Men, Nick Carter and AJ from Backstreet Boys, and Joey Fatone from NSYNC did in Vegas. A very rough draft of, they wanted to do this kind of boy bandy Rat Pack type
mashup.
Yeah, I say rough draft because I don't even think they knew what they were going for, but it was interesting to risk my life and get on a plane for that.
There we go. Was it at least entertaining?
Yes, my favorite part was Wanye from Boyz II Men. He said he was heavily influenced by TV theme songs, and he did a couple of those, which it's probably, if I had to admit, my favorite genre of music is TV theme songs. So
yes, I agree. We're actually going to do a top 5 TV theme song episode of the Notes McGotes Podcast in April. I actually have Brandon doing a review of the Scrubs episode, My Musical. Because it's a short album, it's only like 7 or 8 tracks. We're gonna do that, and then we're gonna kind of piggyback off of it and do a top 5 like music from TV. It can be theme songs, it can be a song from a show. But yeah, so I'm kind of stoked about that as well. I loved me some musical TV.
I mean, Bob's Burger is kind of one of the newer shows that still keeps that alive with their music.
I just recently watched an episode of that of Bob's Burgers recently, and I hadn't watched it in forever just because I don't watch a lot of TV right now, and I hadn't laughed that hard in a while. I was just cracking up dying. It was stupid funny, but man, it was funny.
Yeah, it's been Bob's Burger though. It's one of those shows you can walk away from but get right back into.
Yes.
I know during 2020, there was a lot of shows I fell off of, and that was sadly one of them. But I'm slowly creeping back to it. Slowly. But another big song that year in '94 was Hero by Mariah Carey. Oh my god, it sort of became this like unofficial graduation song, at least in my school district, until Green Day dropped Good Riddance. But again, you mentioned '94. Green Day gave us that cornerstone pop punk album, That's Dookie. And was that like one of your first CDs you remember loving?
It was up there. I was really big. When schools I went to at the time were very inner city-esque, so I was really into the R&B scene. I was kind of getting a taste of the like punk side of things, but we listened to what's on the radio, and the radio was all R&B stuff that didn't. You started getting a little bit more that way. Like Nirvana came out, and they started hitting really hard. But the Dookie was one of those. It's probably my favorite Green Day album. I like Good Riddance, but I think Dookie's probably one of their best albums they've ever made.
Yeah, and it's like we had punk music before them, obviously. You had bands like The Descendants, but I think Green Day being so mainstream and like following them, we kind of have that Hot Topic, mall punk, MTV punk bands like Good Charlotte, Simple Plan, and then of course we evolved into emo music. So I think definitely Green Day.
Between Green Day and Blink, Green Day was the grungier punk, and then Blink was the poppier punk. Like they were kind of that yin and yang that you needed to like push things to MTV to get them to actually play that stuff, and then they were the ones that made it all happen for other bands.
I also think Blink being cute, it sold very well on MTV, and it was during the boy band craze. So if you had a cute guy, I mean,
and they had no problem making fun of all of the boy bands too.
Yeah, but they were just as cute. So.
They definitely knew what they were doing.
And then like there was Stay by Lisa Loeb, which I think fueled Gen X definitely fueled that song thanks to Reality Bites that year. What would you say is a millennials version of Stay?
A millennials version of Stay? Is it Vanessa Carlton?
I mean, I do love that song.
Is it Making My Way Downtown? The Vanessa Carlton song, like that would be, or I mean, what's the other one that I would think of? No, I would think it'd be the Vanessa Carlton one.
That's a good answer. Good answer. Me and my friend were talking about the most recent Super Bowl, and they had Dr. Dre and everything, and then he's on piano. And my friend's like, if they would have had Vanessa Carlton instead, and just had all these rappers, and then randomly did it, and had Terry Crews out there, could you imagine the hysteria? Because everyone would have been so hyped. I think they should definitely let people like 30-somethings plan these events, because
Rihanna's doing it this year, and I'm kind of interested because they haven't announced anybody that's coming with her yet. So if she's just going on her own or what's happening, but
well, the internet and the memes say that she's just going to have like a X amount, however long commercial for her Fenty beauty line.
It's gonna be fun. I actually can't wait to see what she does. We're gonna do something fun for that on our podcast as well. That's more to come on that one, I think.
Well, yeah, I mean, it's interesting. It hasn't released much music, but we'll see. Maybe this is the debut of all her new stuff.
Well, I think with like The Weeknd, he put out stuff right before and then right after. Bruno did stuff right before, right after, and they use this as a springboard, so it kind of works out.
I can only hope Tom Holland is there, because his lip sync to Umbrella is better than anything I think she's ever done.
He's got to be in the full jumpsuit, though. He has to be in everything, like, and just go after it. But yeah,
like that.
Not sure.
That's my favorite Tom Holland role, right there, is that lip sync. But back to the movies. Reality Bites, back to that one. It's a movie that I feel Gen X really base their personalities around, but that's not the only one. I also think Pulp Fiction is another one of those movies people that age kind of attach themselves to. And I actually just watched it in the last year or so. I didn't get it. I didn't like it. Do you think it's
really?
Yeah, for me, that wasn't Tarantino's best.
I agree with you. It's not Tarantino's best. Kill Bill is definitely better. Kill Bill 1 and Kill Bill 2 are definitely better than that one. And but it brought back Travolta. It really gave Sam Jackson a starting point, getting back into things after some stuff in the 80s and the early 90s he did. But if not for Pulp Fiction, I don't think we'd have had Sam Jackson in the stuff he was in. The pop culture-ness of that movie, and you got to think, like, Bruce Willis kind of bombed off there as well. Like, he came back. There's so many things, like, but it's Tarantino, so it is going to be kind of interesting for everybody. You're going to get a different feel for it, whether you like Tarantino or not. If you don't like Tarantino, you're going to hate it. It's Tarantino, for me, is like him and Kevin Smith are like the two like polarizing directors. Like, you either really love Kevin Smith or you hate Kevin Smith, or you really like Tarantino or you hate Tarantino. And like, now I don't like when Tarantino talks. Like, he pisses me off every time he opens his damn mouth. Like, he just stop talking, dude. Like, he makes fun of Marvel movies and DC movies a lot. I'm like, you haven't done anything in years that's been anything worthwhile. Like, shut up. Like, let these guys actually have their moment. But they're not so artsy and whatnot. But I like Pulp Fiction. I like the weaving of the stories together and how kind of everything kind of tied back together. The filmmaking of it is really cool, but I do agree with you. It is not his best. It's probably my third favorite behind the Kill Bill, and I'm going to count 1 and 2 as one, and then Reservoir Dogs is my second, like, most favorite Tarantino flick, and then Pulp Fiction's probably number 3. But it is iconic. I mean, it's what brought him back into the thing. It brought so many huge actors into play that you wouldn't normally, and the things that, like, even the pop culture references that it spawned off of it, and other like gag movies that came out, which is fun.
Yeah, I do like. It's one of those movies, even like, I didn't see it until the last couple of years, but anytime, like, if The Simpsons or any other show would reference it, I knew where the reference was coming from. And I think that's a sign of a good movie, but it wasn't for me. Not for me. And I also think it has to do with maybe I just didn't watch it at the time. Maybe I wasn't old enough to appreciate it, but a movie that I think I was too young, but I did appreciate, and you mentioned it before, Forrest Gump. I mean, some may argue it's the best movie ever. Some people
It's
wouldn't,
the
but
best
I
soundtrack
do
of all
think
time for sure.
it's such a good movie. I think just how the story is told, the emotional ride it takes you on, it is, to me, Tom Hanks most. I think, one day, knock on wood, when he passes, that is going to be the clip they show, him on the bench. It's so amazing.
I agree. It's a masterpiece in how it was done, and you're never going to get something like that again. How much of an epic that it was. And like I said, the soundtrack to that movie is it's amazing. We did a soundtrack on our podcast in November. We did a whole month of a happy Thanksgiving. So we did 9 Tom Hanks movie soundtracks throughout the month of November in 2022, and we ended it with Forrest Gump. So
The cream of the crop.
it is the best one. It like I said, it's probably the best soundtrack of all time. Just the amount of music that's on there and what they did to incorporate it all into the movie. It just is it's a feat of a film to make that happen and to get everything kind of incorporated and make it work the right way. And I don't know, it's fun. I still like watching that one today.
I will, if it on TV, I will watch up until Bubba. And then I can't watch that part. And then I'm just like, okay, so I've seen that everything before that probably a billion times, and everything after that maybe a million times.
Yeah.
I'm strong enough to get past it.
It gets darker after that point too. It gets and then it lightens up towards the end, and then it gets dark again. But it does get very dark after Bubba.
Yeah, but on the flip side, Jim Carrey gave us definitely the opposite that year with 3 absolute bangers. He had Ace Ventura, The Mask, Dumb and Dumber, 2 of which in the top 10 that year. Can you guess which one wasn't?
The Mask.
No, The Mask was actually number 4. It was Ace Ventura.
Ace Ventura. All 3 of those are awesome. All 3 of those were awesome. I knew Dumb and Dumber was up there. I wasn't going to say that one, but I was thinking it was The Mask or Ace Ventura, but Ace Ventura with Toad Loc. Awesome. And Ray Finkel.
So good. I mean, what do you think, like, why? There's just something special. Like I said earlier, I feel like Jim Carrey, just his type of comedy fit the 90s so well. Those types of movies, too. We don't get those kinds today. Kind of Kevin Hart, but not on that same, level. I'm not going to watch a Kevin Hart movie other than Jumanji in 20 years and still laugh like I do Ace Ventura.
Dumb and Dumber with him and Jeff Daniels is just... that was a perfect casting. Those guys were great together, and they still are now. Like, you'll see them when they do stuff together now, and they're still just as hokey and dumb as they were back in the 90s. But Ace is just, it doesn't matter if you're 80 or 8, you're gonna laugh. It's just funny. Talking with your butt and that sort of stuff. It's stupid humor. And then The Mask is just it was so over the top, but there's so many references in that movie that you're just I can still watch it now and not pick up half the stuff that was referenced. Jim Carrey was kind of it's really funny to hear, but he's kind of our generation's Robert Williams, that quick wit.
And all the impersonations he can do, and just the craziness things he could do with his face. That's what
he was the second coming of Robin Williams. Robin Williams was still in his heyday and still going after it pretty heavy.
It's a shame they never got to work together.
Agree. Yeah, I agree. That would have been
Could you imagine them like a father-son type, or maybe brothers? If it today, I guess.
Yeah, I couldn't imagine them as somebody watching the movie, because how fast they both were. It'd be like watching George Carlin and Rodney Dangerfield just going back and forth and feeding off each other. They're both so incredibly smart and funny, and you're trying to one up the other guy, and holy cow, how would you just keep that up? It would be exhausting. And as somebody watching it, you'd be entertained all hell, but
it would have been a great movie. And I mean, Jim Carrey's proven he's still got it. I love him in those Sonic the Hedgehog movies.
Yeah, and he's definitely gone out there on the limb too. I mean, he's definitely hit the crazy pants a little bit heavy on his end too. But he does it in such a tongue-in-cheek way. You're really not even sure if he's being serious anymore. I loved him when he went serious though. And he was fantastic in Truman and The Prestige, or not The Prestige. What's the movie with the movie theater? can't remember now. The number 23 was good too. There's so many, like, when he went serious, you weren't expecting it, and then it worked.
Yeah.
He's one of the few that could actually do it. But yeah, he's still funny now. He's you definitely don't know what the hell he's gonna say now when you watch him. You're just like, what? Like the person that, like, anytime on live TV, the person with the dump button's just sitting there like waiting, like, oh man. Like we need more seconds for Jim. Like, you have to, like, put him on a 10-second delay so I know what he's gonna say.
But that's kind of why we loved him even then and now. He made these movies that were a little raunchy and maybe we shouldn't have been watching as children, but we definitely watched. I think we mentioned this before. Our parents in the 90s didn't care what we watched as long as we weren't hurting anybody, right?
Yeah, 90s PG is like a hard R now too, and like 80s PG is like X-rated now. Like, there's even going back and watching some stuff from like Ghostbusters, and you're just like, ooh, I can't watch that with my kids. It's weird, but it is like we should never have watched The Mask. There should be no reason that you should let kids watch The Mask.
But I remember my mom renting it for me.
I do too. I remember my mom bought it for us. We owned it. We watched it a lot, but there's no reason we should have watched that movie. I mean, Ace Ventura had a lot of parts in it too that you watch it and you're just like, oh my gosh.
Well, both.
Yeah. Like all of them, like both of them were like, you still watch them now and you're just like, why did our parents let us watch this? Why did our parents let us watch this? Like, people ask you if you had trauma. People ask you if you had trauma as a child, or if you were neglected as a child, and you're like, well, now with what I know now, probably.
Yeah, CPS should have been busier in the 90s, but
it was the 90s.
Yeah, it was the 90s. But I mean, we watched these movies and they were raunchy, but that's not because we were lacking. We were in, like, I think the golden age of kids movies, and we talked about this. I mean, we talked about The Lion King. Last time you came on to talk about your crush, Larisa Oleynik, we talked about sports movies, and this year, Little Giants, Mighty Ducks 2, Three Ninjas Kick Back, Angels in the Outfield. Oh, they just do not make these types of movies anymore. Why do you think that is? Where's the disconnect?
I don't know, but I wish they'd make them, like, I have children, you're right. And I don't know, because I just recently bought a Dean Portman jersey, a Mighty Ducks Dean Portman jersey, and I'm actually buying a full breed one next week, I'm pretty sure. I'm waiting for the certain one to come back in stock that I want, but now that I have money, I'm like, I'm buying one of those. I wanted one of those when I was a kid. So I don't know, but I actually think part of the problem is youth sports. I'm a coach. I coach lots of sports and lots of kids. Been doing this for 10 years now. But the numbers in youth sports are going down. Kids are more transitioning to electronic stuff, like video games, and the numbers in sports are really going down. I saw a study recently that they said that high school seniors only, it was like less than 15% would be able to pass the physical test to go into the military.
Oh wow!
And and the number's been going down, getting lower since COVID, because we didn't do anything for a year and a half. So it's been causing problems. So I think it's more of a society issue. We're not as active. We're not as sporty. Whereas, like, in the 90s, you had kids on skateboards going nuts. All kinds of skateboarding, extreme sports movies on, like, Disney Channel and things like that. You had football, and you weren't as health and safety conscious. Like, I coach football now, and the things we can't do that we did when I was playing football at 10 years old is, I have to look back and go, how did we not die, like, doing some things that we did when we were 10? Because it was the 90s. It was weird. But I want to say it's more like we've kind of got away from, like, a lot of those sports and a lot of those active as parents and as, like, kids. They're just not as engaged in those things anymore. So movie studios don't make them anymore. They just don't want to do it. They don't think it'll sell. Even though, like, if they made a Mighty Ducks movie right now and they came back out with a Mighty Ducks actual movie, I'd go see it. I watched the series on Disney Plus. It was awesome.
Oh, I haven't checked out season 2, but
I haven't seen season 2, but I saw season 1.
Yeah, I really enjoyed season. I was like, okay,
Lauren Graham, let's go. Yeah.
I did like that. That's interesting you say, like, sports has gone down, because I was a little fat kid not into sports, but I love the hell out of some sports movies.
Yeah.
Oh yeah, these are my favorite teams.
But you think like even like camp movies and like camp like summer camp TV shows. We had some really cool camp movies with like heavyweights and whatnot in the 90s, and the kids don't go to camp. They just don't do that stuff as much as they used to. I think it's just kind of how our society has changed to be. You have a lot more helicopter parents now than we did in the 90s. Like we joke about like you didn't come back home until the streetlights came back on, and you'd leave the house at 9 o'clock in the morning and you pick up lunch somewhere, like somebody'd feed you. I feel like some parents were just putting out sandwiches like in the middle of the road. And you're just like, get a sandwich and just run like next house. So like you weren't ever inside. You were always outside playing. You're always doing something crazy, either illegal or unsafe. But your parents never found out because 1, there were no smartphones. 2, there was no internet, and I mean, nobody really had a way to film you doing anything stupid, because if they did, ooh man, I can't imagine the history on that right now. I actually am very happy that I didn't grow up with smartphones, because I would be in trouble.
Right.
Cancel a lot quicker than I would now.
I mean, I was usually out all the time. That is until my mom sprung for cable, because Nickelodeon, they were saying goodbye to Doug and Larisa that year in 94, but your crush, Miss Oleynik, Alex Mack, and all that came out that year. What do you think Alex Mack brought to Nickelodeon?
Just a different type of superhero-esque. I mean, you had a girl lead, which is new-ish. I mean, you weren't getting a lot of those. You had Clarissa, but not... It was more of a drama. It wasn't really like an action lead. And you didn't see that very often, so it's kind of fun. And just how they kind of portrayed like teenagers at the time or young adults. It wasn't like far-fetched, as a lot of those 90s shows were pretty far-fetched. This was actually a little bit more, I don't know, relatable and fun, and it was entertaining, but not, they didn't try to jump the shark where a lot of those 90s TV shows went like super drama, and there was always something crazy like Degrassi or even like Seventh Heaven and things like that were just like eh. And they kind of kept it light, but having the female lead was something new. And I mean, especially for Nickelodeon too, they like a single female lead was nice.
Speaking of drama, Nickelodeon did have a little bit, but they weren't like Party of Five and My So-Called Life. Those shows were big into drama. They were kind of aimed at a little older than maybe we were, 7 and 10 at the time. So they really weren't my cup of tea. I remember we had a family friend who loved Party of Five, and my mom would make her go home and watch it because she's like, I'm not watching that here. But I did love Melrose Place at the time. Were there any shows that you shouldn't have been watching at your age that you were watching in the 90s?
So we had cable a little bit towards there, but we watched ER a lot. And I probably shouldn't have watched that a lot of times, but it was, it's there. But ER was probably the big one that we watched that I probably shouldn't have been watching. But really, other than that, we watched a lot of TGIF. Like, I loved TGIF, but like, we would watch, get home from school and you watch X in the animated series or Gargoyles, Beast Wars, stuff like that would come on. Power Rangers would still come on, and I was still into that sort of stuff. But there wasn't really a lot of drama TV shows. My mom was either working or out, so we'd find something we'd want to watch, and then it'd always be something Nickelodeon. But like even some of the cartoons, like Ah Real Monsters was kind of like a cartoon, but also like it really should have been for kids. Like Ren and Stimpy and the things like that. Like The Tick was also another one that was like, yeah, the Ren and Stimpy's terrible. It's fantastic, but it's terrible.
It's like, I did not like that because of like the close-up scenes. And first things, I was like, that's disgusting. Even as a kid, I was like, I'm not this.
Yes, I still want to get my kids to log.
I mean, that is an iconic part.
Yes.
So, my buddy Dre, probably going to hate this part of the show, but I can't talk about 1994 and TV without mentioning Friends. It's so cemented in our lexicon. Like, love it or hate it, I can't imagine TV without it,
It's so cringy to watch now, though.
I mean, I haven't watched a full episode since I had, like, cable, and maybe was in high school. So I haven't seen it lately, but again, love it or hate it, it's one of those shows that will live on forever for some reason. What do you think about it? Like, was it Gen X, like finally having this representation, kind of piggybacking off Reality Bites? Like, what happened? What made Friends so it?
I think it was just the different characters. You had 5 people that shouldn't have been hanging out together that were. Plus they capitalized on all the guest stars of the 90s, the Tom Sellecks, with Brad Pitt was in that. Was he in that? Bruce Willis was in it for a while. Bruce Willis was in it. I mean, there was all kinds of fun stuff that would happen. And it was NBC pushing NBC and ABC were really pushing TV, and it was like, I remember like everybody talking about Sweeps Week, and like people don't talk about that anymore because nobody cares. Nobody watches TV like on TV half the damn time. It's always streaming. But to have Friends, I go back into it now, and there's shows from that time period. Like, I can watch Seinfeld now and still think it's funny. Like, it's still relatively funny. Home Improvement, can watch it, most episodes. Some of them, when they get stupid, and you're like, all right, Brad got caught smoking weed. Okay, who cares? That sort of stuff. But it just, Friends to me was a time capsule. Like, that show doesn't work now. It just, maybe if they updated it, but like
the Meg Ryan.
Yeah, it doesn't work now. It really had its heyday. I think it went a little long to where it needed to go, but NBC stretched every nook and cranny they could get out of that show. But it just did its thing. It was good for the time. I felt like it needed more Lisa Kudrow and less Courtney Cox, personally. And Jennifer Aniston. I couldn't stand Jennifer Aniston half the damn time. I liked Joey, but everybody liked Joey. He was just the buffoon. But you hear, I actually like, more than like watching Friends now, I like reading about like all the like crazy things that happened during that time frame of that show, and like what happened in the behind the scenes of all the things that were going on, and hearing about the dude that played Chandler, what's his name? Matthew Perry, and the things that dude got himself involved in. Holy cow. His book just came out, and that thing is, it's brutal.
He said he doesn't remember some of the like few years filming.
Yeah, and he doesn't remember them all, and like he had to be so stoned to do it, and just because he was like terrible. But he was like the it guy for a while there too, like in different movies and things like that. He was just everywhere, and then all of a sudden he wasn't. So we go through like phases, I think. I don't know what that phase is right now for TV. Maybe it's Stranger Things, but even then, we're not hitting that one pretty hard.
Today, I don't know if there's a show like Friends on today that I feel like, because I feel like people don't.
Is there must watch TV today? Like, no. Is there must watch TV? Like, people will watch it.
Must watch week when it drops, and then it goes away, and we kind of forget about it.
Because we can stream it in like 3 days, sometimes in 1 day, depending on if you're crazy or not.
The only show making a lot of noise that's prime time is Abbott Elementary. I feel like that is still holding true to what, because I love it. I'm a traditionalist for TV. I love, of course, I have streaming and everything, but I love just ABC comedy. Give it to me every week. I love it.
I think like after we lost Parks and Rec, The Office, Community, and How I Met Your Mother, like there hasn't been anything since those shows that's really like long running, that has been like people binge it and like have to watch it like as a sitcom type show. Like after those like 4 shows, and Community was like the like bastard stepchild of all of those shows, but it's amazing. It's a funny show. I feel like there's not anything like that anymore, where in the 90s every network had a flagship TV, like had a flagship night. Like ABC was Friday nights, NBC was Thursday nights, ABC also had Monday Night Football, but Fox had like Wednesdays and Sundays because of the animation. So like CBS had whenever like Criminal Minds came out or whatever, when that sort of stuff was going on, or NCIS. But it felt like every network had like one night where you like, I have to watch NBC tonight because it's gonna be Friends, and it's gonna be this, and it's gonna be this, and it's gonna be this, and there's 4 shows in a row with Friends and like Will and Grace and something else were coming out, so you had to watch that channel that night. And everybody watched TGIF on Fridays. It just is.
I mean, that's how you had to end the week, and then you had Saturday morning cartoons the next day. It was a whole thing, and then Sunday, maybe a I Love Lucy rerun or 2 in the afternoon.
It's probably why like we started like getting away from like being active more, because TV was like so part of our lives. And now we're all parents, and we're like, media, let's go.
Well, the year Friends originally aired, we said goodbye to another hit show, and that was Saved by the Bell, the college years.
Oh, the college years. Oh.
Now, do you think if Saved by the Bell had tried to take things a step further and maybe follow them in a more adult landscape, like out of college, could they have rivaled Friends? Do you think those characters could have taken on those New York?
I don't know. I feel like we were kind of burned out of them by that time. I mean, you probably could have, you weren't, yeah, but you probably could have kept a couple of them and maybe built off other characters on top of it. But I think, like, you could have kept Zach around and maybe built something off of him, but you had to drop and add some more in. Like, you just kind of get tired of, like Screech was, like, you know, Jewish Urkel. It just is, like, yeah, you could have dropped Screech. You could have dropped Slater and add somebody else in. You could have, I mean... could have, not that you should have, but you could have. It just, I feel like they could have revamped it with some of them. They kind of rebooted it a little bit, like they did the college years, and maybe done something. But I also thought at the time, like, even TV executives get like bored with shows, and they just drop stuff early. They let stuff go, you know, faster than they should. Like Buffy probably should have lasted longer than it did, but it didn't because people got tired of it.
Well, I guess. Well, you know, we got to see the Saved by the Bell cast come back on. I believe it was Talk.
Yep.
First season, like Mighty Ducks, I did watch and I enjoyed it because they were in on the joke of how cheesy the show was originally. I didn't see the second season, and now it's gone.
Yes.
So now we're gonna do some popcorn questions. You're gonna give me 5 numbers, 1 through 50, and they're all 90s based. So first number.
22.
Did you, be honest, watch the Pam and Tommy infamous tape back in the day?
Oh, back in the day? No, but yes. I think I watched it in 99. I was a sophomore in high school.
I've never seen it, but I've heard good things.
There's a lot of things.
a lot of things.
Tommy learns how to steer a boat with a different part of his body, so.
That's the iconic part I've heard about.
Yeah.
So, well, I didn't get the internet until 2005, and I was like in college, and I was just interested in like Googling random things. Like I would watch Tiny Toons on YouTube, and I thought I was blown away by YouTube, because that was the year YouTube came out. It was my year. Oh my god.
2005. Wow, I was in college.
It was my freshman year of college.
Okay, I was gonna say I was like, I would have been a junior in college at that point. Nice.
Next number.
37.
Everyone picks this one. If Brandy and Monica both wanted you, which one would win your heart?
Brandy.
She's the popular answer.
Yeah, I think Brandy.
Yeah, I would pick her too. Sitting up in my room.
Gotta go Cinderella.
Oh, she is the Cinderella. I do love Drew Barrymore in Ever After, though.
Yes.
Different. It was like a gritty Cinderella.
Yes, it was a gritty Cinderella, but I think Brandy setting up was kind of the building blocks to getting the Ariel. We're gonna get Little Mermaid this year, so.
I am gonna give it the benefit of the doubt, like I've done every live action Disney movie, but I don't have the highest of hopes because I've seen the other live action Disney movies.
Not all of them have been bad. There's been a couple of stinkers in there, but you gotta get a couple of them in there. But I think we'll be okay. I'm hopeful.
Yeah, I'm hopeful for this one. I mean, they got a good singer.
They got a good singer. So okay, next one.
Yeah.
46.
Oh, okay. Who's scarier, Macaulay Culkin from Home Alone or Macaulay Culkin in The Good Son? Or Macaulay Culkin as an adult?
Oh God. Wow, that's a deep one. Because Macaulay Culkin, he could have not beat the crap out of Joe Pesci and Daniel Stern. He was out for blood. The Good Son, holy cow.
I know.
That is a movie there. That's poor Elijah Wood. And Macaulay Culkin now is actually pretty chill. I actually like him now.
Oh, he's so gorgeous too.
He's fantastic, and he just kind of understands the he leans into it more than he did, 10, 12 years ago.
I think that he took a well-deserved break, and then he came back strong.
Because, to tell you the truth, one of my favorite Macaulay Culkin movies is actually Party Monster. I love that movie. I think it's fantastically done. About the club kids. Saved is good too. But I'm gonna have to go The Good Son because holy cow, that one was there's some things that you watch now and you're like, oh man, it just gives you chills.
Yeah, and the fact that they made it with these children and the premise of it, it's just, if you haven't seen it, if you're listening, definitely try to find it. I wouldn't watch it with children. I don't know why I think my mom just saw Macaulay Culkin and thought, hey, it's another kid's movie. All right, next number?
13.
Do you think the Oregon Trail taught us anything?
To die of dysentery. We learned new words that we hadn't known before. No. I think it was just a fun game that we all tried to kill each other in spectacular ways. How can we die this time? But I mean, it did teach us I guess there's some fun history aspects of it, but no. I don't think any computer games really taught us much of anything when, in the early 90s.
Yeah, I think it was just a way for teachers to have a moment to themselves.
Oh, it was definitely the beginning of the electronic babysitter.
Yeah, I remember distinctly our teacher taking us to the computer lab, us being so stoked because who had a computer at home,
Right.
All right, your last popcorn number?
8.
Where were you when the OJ verdict was read?
It was in 94, I believe. It was 95, January 24th, 95. I was probably in school when that happened. I do remember it, though, being on TV, and knowing, and then kind of, looking up, later on. I think I looked more into that, 97, 98. I got more into the trial, looked back at it. But, I was, more than likely, I was in school.
I have to say, OJ, I didn't know anything about him. I was, 6, 7, 8 years old, and I just remember hating him because that trial took off Bobby's World. They played it so much, and I was like, Mom, I don't know what this guy did. I don't care what this guy did. I want to watch Bobby's World.
I was like, why is the dude from National Lampoon's on trial? Why is the dude from Naked Gun on trial? He was on Naked Gun 33 1/3. Let's go.
It's just, yeah, it was, I was like, well, so when the verdict was read, I was just relieved that my cartoons could come back.
Yeah, that was kind of the start of everybody wanted to watch trials on TV and court TV and stuff, and it just made our media dependence even worse, I think. But no, I think it would have been in school, and actually it was read October 3rd of 95, so it would have been late 95. So it started in January. It took almost a dang year.
Yeah, that's a lot of Bobby's World to miss.
It's a lot of Bobby's World, yeah. Howie Mandel, I tell you.
So our last question. If you were the age you are now, but in 1994, what do you think your life would be like?
I'd probably have a low-paying job. I don't know. It'd be weird. I just 94 was when things were starting to kind of make a comeback. The economy was kind of coming back. Clinton had been in office for 2 years. So things were kind of bouncing back at that point, but also you were kind of coming out of Desert Storm. There was so much weird going on in our country. So I would have been I probably would have been more social justice inclined with the different with the riots in 92, the LA riots in 92, and just kind of being more pushing buttons. And I think you got away with a lot more in the 90s, where you could be like really anti-establishment, and it was kind of that like simmering under the surface for many years there. But I would have been more in like the grunge like craziness scene, I think, in the style of the frame reference that I am now. But I'd have a couple of kids, be married more than likely, work in a job that I probably hated. But I mean, not so much different than right now. I've a lot more than a couple of kids, but I don't know. It would have been weird looking back at the time.
Weird to think of like I had a single mom too, and it's weird to think like that woman was just raising some kids, man,
Yeah, and like looking back, I look back at like what my mom went through when I was when I was younger, and like we talk about like not knowing we didn't have stuff for Christmas, not knowing we didn't have what we had, and you had no idea, and just thinking about like how the hell would one person do that? And like my wife and I talk about it now, and we're like, there's no way in hell I could do this on my own. Like, how did because my wife's mom's a single mom too, and she had 4 kids, and I'm like, how? No. Like, you just like, it was like a hustle. Like, you just did it.
And I feel like I never remember, like, because our parents also didn't have social media like we do. So it's like, I'm like, where was she complaining? I'm on Twitter all day complaining. Where was the mom? Where were our moms venting? Because I don't remember her. She had friends, but like being a single mom, she wasn't going out like all the time with her friends. She was going to the casino, yes, but she wasn't relaxing. That's another story.
I remember going to my aunt's house. Like my aunt lived very close to us, so like my mom's sister, and we would go over there, and they would have like wine or beer, and they just hang out in like backyard, and we'd be playing with my cousins and whatnot, doing stuff. But that's where like the gripes happen, and they'd be shooting the shit and arguing and being pissed about something. So like I could see it there, but yeah, it's such a weird aspect now of figuring out like not having social media, not knowing where your parents complained, and now seeing them complain quite frequently, because my mom complains about every damn thing.
I'm glad that it's not the internet.
I'm kind of glad that the internet wasn't a thing, and Al Gore didn't invent it by then, so we're good.
Yeah, my mom, I would not trust her on the internet.
No, I don't trust my mom on the internet now.
My mom's a biatch. So she'd just be like going after everybody, everything. So I'd be like, Mom, no.
Like Mack Karen?
Not Mack Karen, but she's just a biatch. My mom's like, if Eric Cartman was a 60-some-year-old woman.
That's amazing, though.
she loves Cartman. It's her favorite character. She's
even better.
Why I watch South Park. She would record it for me because I would be too sleepy in 5th grade when it started, and then I'd watch it in the morning before school.
Speaking of shows we shouldn't have watched when we were kids, and movies we shouldn't have watched when we were kids. Holy cow, that one.
I know, like I had a close friend, we're like a month apart, and he was like bad, like one of those bad kids, and I was a very good kid, and my mom let me see South Park. His mom dragged him out of the theater, and I was like, your son cusses all the time, is like in the principal's office, like he's already bad. This isn't influencing him, honey.
My mom took us to see, we had a drive-in movie theater where I was like, we went to see South Park, and it was the second, because they ran 2 movies. She ran the first one, and there was a second show. Well, my mom fell asleep during South Park, and like we watched the whole dang thing, and like I think my sister at the time was probably 6, because she's 8 years younger than me, so she was probably like 5 or 6, and she stayed up and watched the whole thing too. She shouldn't have, but my mom was like, we woke her up, and she's like, how was the movie? It was great. And we're just like, oh, the things that we could repeat, and she'd be like, where'd you hear that? South Park. And then she'd laugh because it was the 90s.
Yep, my mom would be like, do the impression, do the Cartman.
Do the Cartman. Well.
Yeah.
No, we would, it's, again, even I won't let my kids now watch South Park, because there's just no way. Even The Simpsons can get a little rough sometimes.
My nephew is 10 and loves The Simpsons. Like, he's gone back and he's watched all the old ones. I don't know if he like stays into it, but that's something I was really surprised, because I was like, oh, So the kids maybe, because I always think of like Nick at Night and everything, and that's how I got introduced, and we had reruns, of course. And I'm like, do kids go out of their way to like look into what came before them? So I'm glad he is showing me that he's interested in that, not just
Yeah.
Roblox.
Yeah, my kids will watch like my kids love Home Improvement. My mother-in-law watches it on, I don't know, one of the free like streaming TV channels. I think Laugh TV has it on there, and they'll sit and watch it for like an hour. They'll watch 2 or 3 episodes and just hang out. And they laugh and they like all the jokes, and they still think they're funny. So like they'll sit and watch Home Improvement. They'll watch some of the other ones too, but they think that show's hilarious. I mean, it still is pretty funny half the time, so, or most of the time. But they like The Simpsons. They like watching the old ones. Like I said, my older ones are getting closer now where they understand a lot more of the jokes, which is even funnier because like now they're just like, whoa, and like you get them to like they like look over at us like when they hear a joke. They're like, what? Like they laugh. They like watch us to make sure it's okay to laugh. It's kind of funny. The same thing we did when we were kids. Like you just like, I caught that. Look at your mom. The first time you watch Shrek as like a young adult, and you're like, whoa.
I mean, Shrek's just, oh my god. If I do 2000s, Shrek is up there.
Shrek is coming up.
Oh, in my heart, forever. Out of Disney, like if you can't count Disney, I mean, I would even put Shrek above a lot of Disney movies personally, but
Yes.
that's just me.
Yes.
So before we say our farewells, can you remind people where they can find you and Notes McGotes Podcast?
Yes, you guys can find the Notes McGotes Podcast, all streaming platforms. Just search Notes McGotes Podcast. You'll find Nate jumping on the record there. We have over 220 episodes recorded now. So there's generally you're going to find an album, an artist that you like, one that you may hate, that you'll find me and Brandon just kind of go off on every so often. We're not nice to all of them, I can guarantee you that. We actually had a whole month of hate last year in 2022, in July. But again, find us on Facebook, the Notes McGotes Podcast, TikTok, the Notes McGotes Pod. Just let us know you found us via Crushgasm. It'd be great. And we will hope to see you guys soon.
Well, Steve, I'm excited to come back on the show, and I just want to say thank you for taking the time to talk everything 1994 with me and everyone. You can find all that information below. And until next time, as always, keep crushing it.